So in this video today, I will show you the 4 key reasons why Andromeda campaigns keep failing and what to do to fix them. If you're thinking about how do we know stuff like this, it's because we audit hundreds of accounts of businesses just like yours. And because of that, we know what happens often in the accounts and what causes failure for the campaigns. If you're interested in doing an audit yourself, you can find a link about that in the description. So I just wanted to show you quickly how this all looks like this Andromeda setup. Like you can see here, like on average, we have about 40 to 50 creatives per ad set, and then you have a lot of ad sets here. Most of them have different setups depending on what we need from them to do. Now, if you're looking at the $200,000 a month ad spend, you don't need this in order for you to be successful at Andromeda, but you do need to have the proper setup that I'll teach you later down the video. I just wanted to quickly show you some of the accounts so you know how this looks and that you know that all of this that I'm showing you, we are actively using in the accounts for our clients. Now, let's switch to this. So the first step that we need to do is the technical setup. If you didn't do this, what could happen to you is that the data that came to your algorithm wasn't sufficient or was corrupted or was somewhere in between. And so that caused the algorithm to not be able to figure out what it needs to do next. So then that causes you to get stuck in the learning phase. And then from that point on, it either fizzles out or you spend a lot of money and don't get the results you really want. So you need to understand that you have to do this, and that if you didn't do this so far, you're going to have a lot of issues scaling, performing anything, and all of your tests so far are invalidated. The first thing you need to understand is your website is your container of all of the traffic coming in. So regardless of how the traffic flows, if you do not have a system that can actually capture them and get them through the funnel, most people are going to leave and you're just going to capture people leaving. So you need to make sure that your website's optimized, and we did cover that in other videos, and we will make a big one for 2026. But the main thing I wanted to let you all guys know is that everybody fails with mobile optimization. So most of the traffic you're going to get is going to be mobile, and I gave you here an example on how this can look. So 80% can sometimes come mainly from Meta or Google. And so you can imagine most business owners spend their time looking at their laptop. So they look at their desktop version and they never see the bugs that only happen on mobile. So if you had that, regardless if you did the tracking setup properly in the data feed, there's going to be issues, and the campaigns are also going to underperform. So you need to make sure that that's also covered. The next thing that we have to also check is Meta Conversions API. Often businesses have issues setting this up after iOS 14.5. We recorded a video that is basically covering this in 2 clicks, how to set it up, and you should go and check it out. But the main thing you need to understand is that this is how we patch the bridge between the data not being sent to Meta and us actually getting the data back to Meta from the server. You don't need to understand all the way how this works, but basically if you do not understand what happened with the people that clicked on your ad, which happens when you don't set up CAPI, the algorithm is not going to know what to do next. Like if somebody bought, the algorithm is not going to know and won't be able to use that data to find the next person to buy from you. So that's an important thing to consider before launching Andromeda campaigns. And now this is not a thing that you have to do, but is an important thing. So before I go into Stape and Blotout, I want to show you this. This is what we call event match quality. So this number here basically tells you how often Meta is actually able to figure out who are you sending them out of the data that they collected from you. So meaning that if you have like 6 out of 10, basically 30 to 40% of people that clicked are not tracked. Now, if you want to find how this looks for yourself, you need to go to all tools and then go to your advanced manager, and then you should go find your pixel and then go to data sets. And then when you go there, you will see event match quality. And then if you want to improve this, there is a solution for that as well. And that's Stape or Blotout. So what are these two? Basically, Stape and Blotout are third-party vendors, meaning that like Facebook and a lot of other platforms, they collect data on users. They buy them, they collect them, and then what you do is when you set up the bridge between them and Meta, Meta's then able to also use their data besides Meta's data to figure out who the person that clicked is. So basically meaning that you're going to get a higher event match quality. So why would you as a business owner want to spend the additional money for Stape and Blotout? If you look at the event match quality, the main thing you need to know is that the higher that number is, the faster the efficiency of the optimization of your campaigns is going to be. So the algorithm is going to know who the people are coming in, and they're going to be able to use that data to figure out who is the next person that needs to see your ad. So if you do not have this set up, I really suggest that you set it up, because it's a simple thing to do, and you will see that your performance and overall ROAS goes up just by installing something like this. So it really does pay off to add stuff like this before you launch your Andromeda campaign. Okay, so the next thing is going to be audience segmentation. Audience segmentation is basically the way how the Andromeda campaign gets told who is who. So who is the new traffic, who is the engaged audience, and who is the existing customers. This is super important to set up. We've noticed so many different companies launch Andromeda campaigns without this, and of course the campaigns didn't work. Meaning that you can use Andromeda for both prospecting and remarketing, but you also have to go and tell it what is that for you as a business. So when you go here, you can see that in this case, we had only website visitors, and then engaged customers are the email lists and the pixel data that we captured. But already that is a strong indicator for the algorithm what it needs to do. So if you haven't set up this, in general, your Andromeda campaign won't be able to perform. And then I suggest you go here and set it up. So what you can do is go to all tools and then find it in advertisement settings, and then just click here. You will find it, and it's easy to set up, and that's going to help you perform a lot better. Now, the next thing that I want to talk to you about is the structure of the campaigns. Before I switch to the Miro board, I wanted to show you this structure. So basically we only have 2 campaigns here, and the main thing why you want to do this is because you want to have one prospecting and one remarketing, and that's kind of it. Now, depending on how many offers you have, if the offers are unique, as I mentioned, this account, for example, here, every offer is completely different to the others, so that it doesn't make sense to keep them under one campaign. But if all of your products are kind of similar, one prospecting campaign, and there you can also blend some of the warm audience, meaning that it doesn't need to be just generally prospecting. It can also be people that liked, shared, comment, engaged, and then only for remarketing you can then use either an Advantage Plus or a dynamic product ad, depending on what performs better. We always test both and then see which one ends up performing. The dynamic product ad has an advantage for e-commerce because it's not a conversion campaign, it's a catalog sales campaign. So that usually gets you a lower CPM, and because of the lower CPMs, you can have higher profitability and better ROAS with the old DPA ads, even though the Advantage Plus campaigns are so highly advertised right now. Now, when it comes to the structure, before we had a lot of different campaigns. We had multiple prospecting campaigns, a couple of remarketing campaigns. Now the philosophy is consolidating everything into the least amount of campaigns as possible. So now that I showed you accounts, I'll get into the setup of how it needs to be structured. So in the case of testing prospecting, if you mix warm and cold audiences, what's going to happen is that the whole campaign is going to get misled. It's going to get optimized on the data from the hot audience, and it's actually not going to perform after it gets out to the learning phase and it spends the people in the warm audience. So your goal for prospecting campaigns is solely to make an ad that's going to convert and intrigue a person that had zero experience with your brand, so completely cold person. And then the remarketing ads are there to mop up the people that are indecisive. You don't need one ad to do everything at the same time. So that's one of the main reasons why you want to have your prospecting testing campaign separate. Okay, we covered prospecting test. The main thing you need to understand now is that as you test, some ads are going to perform well, and then the best performers you need to move ideally to a graduation campaign. So in that campaign, what I would combine is a remarketing stack of ads plus those best performing prospecting ads, and that can be your Advantage Plus core campaign. And then, as we talked about, you can also use that for the bottom of the funnel, or a dynamic product ads campaign for the bottom of the funnel. So I hope this makes sense. And now I wanted to show you for the structure. So as you go into some of these accounts, the main thing you need to understand with the targeting, especially when you have an account spending $200,000 like this, you will get to a point where you're not adding any targeting, and I'll show you here. Basically, the whole Andromeda campaign takes over targeting and contextually understands which type of creative it needs to show to the individual, and it's not leaning on cohorts and data like that, it's leaning on individual data. So that's one of the reasons why not adding audiences tends to perform. But you need to understand that you do need to have data that the algorithm can base its tests on. Otherwise, you cannot just launch a campaign completely zero without any of the setup we mentioned and then hope it's going to work. It's not like that. So, and this is great for you guys that already are running ads and want to transition. So quickly, I want to show you how the structure looks. So what we usually do is we completely exclude any purchasers, depending on, again, the data that we have. Sometimes we might go a bit crazier with exclusions, sometimes we might not. But the main thing you need to understand is we try to keep as many ads active as possible in each campaign. The main thing you need to understand with these is that as you have enough ad spend and as the data comes in, the algorithm is good enough to actually just continue on its own without any settings in targeting. And that's kind of good because that way it can evolve and continue tapping into new audiences without you actually having to kill an underperformer, then launch a new one and you figuring it out yourself. So that's the main thing you need to know. The main thing that everybody gets wrong with their structure is that they try making a lot of different campaigns and they don't make enough creatives. Our goal is to put as many creatives as possible in each of these ad sets. So I'll show you quickly how this looks. So as you can see here, even though the ads are off, I just want to show you that they have 50 creatives in them, and then we test them and see what performs, what underperforms, and what doesn't. So the structure you need to use is the least amount of campaigns, campaign budget optimization, 50 creatives in one ad set, and then just try to scale it as much as you can. The least restrictions as possible, the better, but you need to make sure that the data is there. Now, you also need to understand that if you have SEO traffic, that might help you with optimization. So that's one other reason to make sure that you track everything properly. The last one is perfectly adjacent to this one. So we need to talk about the creative process and how to do the spin-offs. So as we get a winning ad, how do we go about it? Like, what is the next step after you get one ad that dominates the other 50? So when it comes to the creatives, and I mentioned spin-offs, what do we do to get better results and how do we go about testing it, especially with this volume? So the main thing you need to understand, there's so many people talking about meta creatives and this and that, and everybody's acting like a sniper rifle, long shots and making projections, thinking about how they're going to be the next Don Draper. But the main thing with Meta's update now is that it's actually switching to a machine gun. So as we mentioned, needs more data, more ammo and everything. So you need to actually treat it as a machine gun. So you don't make wild corrections, you make small critical iterations and you get there inch by inch. And that's what you need to do as a mentality. You don't change too many things, you make a lot of variations, a lot of iterations until you hit the sweet spot. And the Andromeda algorithm is perfect at helping you figure all of this out. So this is the main thing you need to understand, and this is one of the reasons why I like to have the Andromeda algorithm, because it's an easy system to process, and on top of it, it's a thing that you can replicate and scale without actually having to teach somebody for 10 years advertising. I made a video on best performing creatives for Andromeda. You can check it out here. Also, the link is in the description. But the main thing you need to understand is that we don't do long shots even as well. So we have a process on how we figure out what we need to write where and how we layer the tests. So as you see, we have so many versions, like we have up to 10, 15, 20 versions of the creative tests. So when we launch the first test, it's usually something like a template like this. So it usually has basic testing of benefits, and we try to figure out what is going to actually get the target audience interested, what's going to get the most clicks, what is going to get the best watch time. And then through stuff like this, we actually get better and figuring out what we need to write. Because at the end of the day, if you have a really good offer, people are going to come to you even if your ad looks shitty. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You need to figure out what is your offer, how to frame it, and just explain it in a way that people are going to resonate with it. So after we test out some of the angles and benefits, we are getting closer. So we then level it up, and then this is just pure benefit ads. So as you can see, then we test out different ways of delivering that benefit and trying to grab attention, but mainly we're still figuring out if those benefits are going to be the thing that flips the needle. And now we go with a bit more contextual or emotional angles here. So as you can imagine, we're just adding layer by layer. So with each time we do a new layer, we add a layer of complexity to it. And because of that, it usually ends up being really good. And then at the end, you try doing full cloaking ads because you know that your ad is super good and developed, and then you can place it wherever, and that bold statement or the offer you have will convert a lot of people. Now, this is just for static images. We will talk about video ads in some of the next videos, but I just wanted to give you an example on how to develop an ad. The main thing you need to understand is that if, for example, an ad like this worked, I would test 50 different variations of what is written here, and also what are the pictures here, and what is just the whole story that the person gets, and trying to figure out which image worked better and why. I know that these ads don't look anything crazy, but the main thing is that these ads need to do a job, and the numbers don't lie. So I hope this video helps you, and I hope that you manage to unclog your Andromeda ads, because it's incredible. We're scaling so many accounts, and if you are interested to figure out why your Andromeda campaigns are not scaling, feel free to click on the link below, fill out the form, and apply for a no waste audit. We will help you understand exactly what's holding your brand back and how to fix it. Thank you very much for watching until the end. If you can drop a comment, what would you like to watch as next video? Or if you have a problem with your business, let me know and I'll try to record a video on that topic. Thank you very much, and see you in the next one.